On Christmas Eve 1997, two flight attendants walked into Logan International Airport in Boston and were never seen again. No bodies, no witnesses, no answers. For 23 years, their families clung to hope while investigators chased ghosts through a case that haunted New England. But in December 2020, demolition crews tearing down Terminal C's abandoned customs wing discovered a bricked-up room that would finally reveal the chilling truth about what happened in those silent corridors on the holiest night of the year. This is the story of Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton, and the darkness that waited for them in the place where a million travelers pass through every day, but no one ever truly sees. Before we dive into today's vanished story, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe to Seek Stories for more mysterious disappearance cases. The terminal lights of Logan International Airport cast a warm golden glow across the polished floors as the final wave of Christmas Eve travelers rushed toward their gates. Outside, snow fell in thick white curtains, blanketing the runways and grounding flights across the Northeast. Inside Terminal C, holiday music drifted through the speakers, competing with gate announcements and the constant hum of thousands of people trying to get home for Christmas. Megan Richardson adjusted the navy blue scarf of her Atlantic Skies Airlines uniform and checked her reflection in a shop window. At 27, she had been flying for 4 years, and Christmas Eve shifts were part of the job. Her older sister Rachel lived in Newton, and they had plans for a late Christmas dinner once Megan's shift ended. Beside her, Jessica Hamilton pulled her wheeled suitcase with practiced ease. At 33, Jessica was a veteran with 8 years of experience, respected by the younger attendants. But tonight, her expression was troubled, and she kept glancing at her watch as if willing time to move faster. "I hate leaving them on Christmas Eve," Jessica said quietly. "Emma asked me why Santa would come if Mommy wasn't home. How do you explain standby shifts to a 6-year-old? Megan offered a sympathetic smile. "At least you have kids waiting for you. I've got a studio apartment in Cambridge and a goldfish who probably won't even notice I'm gone." They walked together through the main concourse as the crowds began to thin. It was approaching 10:45. Most of the holiday travelers had already boarded their flights. The shops had closed early, their metal gates pulled down and locked. A janitor pushed a mop across the floor in the distance. Somewhere overhead, a tinny version of Silent Night played from a speaker that sounded decades old. "I need coffee," Megan said, stifling a yawn. "There's that employee break room near gate C32. Want to come?" Jessica checked her watch. 10:47. The supervisor had said they'd likely be released by 11:30. That would get her home by midnight, just in time for Christmas morning. Sure, better than standing around here. They turned down a side corridor, one of the narrow passages connecting the bright public terminal to the employee-only sections. The change was immediate. Warm lighting gave way to harsh fluorescent tubes, some flickering. Holiday decorations disappeared, replaced by safety posters and yellowed notices. The temperature dropped noticeably. "This place always creeps me out when it's empty," Megan murmured. Their footsteps echoed off concrete walls as the passage stretched ahead, lined with unmarked doors and abandoned equipment. They reached the employee break room, a small space with vending machines, an old coffee maker, and plastic chairs. The room was empty. Megan fed quarters into the coffee machine, listening to them clink down. The machine hummed and gurgled, finally producing a cup of dark liquid. "Merry Christmas to me," Megan said, taking a cautious sip and grimacing. "This tastes like it was brewed last week." Jessica laughed, but it died quickly. She was standing near the door, looking out into the corridor. "Did you hear that?" Megan lowered her cup. "Hear what?" "I thought I heard something. From back there." They both stood silent, listening. Then they heard it. A sound from deeper in the corridor. Something moving. Something being dragged across concrete, creating a rhythmic scraping that made the hairs on Megan's arms stand up. "Probably just maintenance," Megan said, but her voice lacked conviction. The sound came again, closer. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. Then a voice, distant and muffled, calling out words they couldn't make out. Jessica set down her bag. "Hello? Is someone there?" No response. Just that scraping sound growing steadily louder. "Maybe we should head back to the main terminal," Jessica said, and Megan could hear the unease in her friend's voice. "Yeah, let's go." Megan abandoned her coffee and grabbed her bag. They moved toward the door, but as Jessica reached for the handle, the lights flickered. Once, twice. The fluorescent tubes buzzed, dimming and brightening in a pattern that felt wrong. "That's not normal," Megan whispered. Then the lights went out completely. Absolute darkness swallowed the corridor. Megan's breath caught. She reached out blindly for Jessica, but found only empty air. "Jessica," she called out. She heard a scuffle, a muffled sound, something hitting the wall. "Jessica!" Megan screamed, backing away. Then hands grabbed her from behind. Strong hands. Something pressed over her mouth. She tried to fight, tried to scream, but her voice was cut off. The world spun, and then everything went black. When the lights flickered back on minutes later, the corridor was empty. Silent. 2 coffee cups sat abandoned in the break room. 2 wheeled suitcases stood near the door, forgotten. And Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton were gone. The December cold bit through Detective Catherine Morrison's coat as she stood outside the demolition site at Logan International Airport. It was December 19th, 2020, and the discovery had been made just 5 hours earlier when a demolition crew broke through what they thought was a solid wall and found something that would change everything. Kate was 41 now, with streaks of silver threading through her auburn hair, which she wore pulled back in a practical bun. She'd been with Boston police for 17 years, the last 9 in homicide. She'd worked countless cases, but standing here in the pre-dawn darkness, watching crime scene techs erect floodlights around Terminal C's demolished customs wing, she felt the familiar weight of a case that was going to stay with her. Detective Morrison, a uniformed officer, approached, his breath creating small clouds in the frigid air. "The medical examiner is ready for you." Kate nodded, pulling on latex gloves as she walked toward the entrance. The demolition site was supposed to become part of Logan's Terminal C modernization project, tearing down sections that hadn't been used since the late 90s. Instead, it had become a crime scene, surrounded by yellow tape and portable lights that turned the falling snow into a strange, theatrical effect. She descended a temporary metal staircase into what had once been the lower level of the old customs area. The demolition crew had been removing walls to expose the support structure when their equipment had punched through into a space that wasn't on any of the architectural plans. A hidden room, sealed behind layers of brick and drywall, forgotten for more than 2 decades. The space was small, maybe 12 feet by 15 feet, with concrete walls and no windows. Portable work lamps had been set up in each corner, casting harsh white light across every surface. Dr. Rebecca Hawkins, the medical examiner, looked up as Kate entered. The older woman's face was grim, her usual professional detachment strained by what she'd seen in the past few hours. "Kate, this one's going to be difficult." Kate had heard that warning before, but she never got used to it. "Show me." The room contained 2 sets of remains, positioned in different areas. Dr. Hawkins led Kate to the far corner, where the first victim lay partially concealed behind old filing cabinets. The skeleton was clothed in scraps of fabric, navy blue that had faded and degraded over the years, but was still recognizable as a uniform. Nearby, partially buried in dust and debris, was a corroded name tag. "Can you make it out?" Kate asked, crouching down for a closer look. Dr. Hawkins carefully lifted the tag with forceps, brushing away years of accumulated dirt with a soft brush. The metal had oxidized, but the engraving was still visible. "Richardson. M. Richardson." Kate felt her pulse quicken. She'd spent the drive over pulling up missing persons cases from Logan Airport, going back 30 years. 2 names had jumped out immediately. 2 flight attendants who'd vanished on Christmas Eve, 1997, and were never found. "Megan Richardson," Kate said quietly. 27 years old. Disappeared December 24th, 1997. "The second victim is over here," Dr. Hawkins said, moving to the opposite side of the room. This set of remains had been positioned near one of the walls. There were chains still visible, bolted into the concrete. When Dr. Hawkins found the name tag, she didn't need to read it aloud. Kate could see it clearly in the lamplight. "Hamilton." J. Hamilton. Jessica Hamilton, Kate said. 33 years old. Disappeared the same night as Megan Richardson. Both were Atlantic Skies flight attendants. Both walked into this airport for a standby shift and never walked out. Dr. Hawkins nodded grimly. They've been here for 23 years, Kate. Hidden in this room while the world moved on above them. Kate stood, looking around the small space, trying to understand what had happened here. The room showed signs of having been used for something before it became a tomb. Old furniture, filing cabinets, the remnants of what might have been an office or storage area. But someone had cleared most of it out, had prepared this space for a specific purpose. What can you tell me about cause of death? Kate asked. Dr. Hawkins moved carefully around the evidence markers. Based on the evidence, the first victim suffered fatal head injuries. The second victim shows signs consistent with asphyxiation. Both victims show signs of having been held for an extended period. Kate's jaw tightened. How long were they kept here? Based on the evidence, at least several days. Possibly longer. This wasn't quick, Kate. Whoever did this planned everything carefully. Kate walked the perimeter of the room, her mind already working through the implications. Whoever did this had access to this area of the airport, had knowledge of the layout, knew about this space, knew it could be sealed off without anyone noticing. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. This was planned, methodical, executed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. What about physical evidence? Kate asked. Crime scene techs are processing everything, Dr. Hawkins replied. After 23 years, it's challenging. We found some fiber evidence that doesn't match the victim's clothing. And there are tool marks on the wall, consistent with someone sealing this space from the outside. On one of the concrete walls, Kate noticed something else. Scratches in the surface, marks that could have been made with a nail or a piece of metal. She pointed her flashlight at them, angling it to catch the marks better. Are those words? She asked. Dr. Hawkins came over to look. We noticed those too. It's hard to make out after all this time, but there appear to be several words scratched here. We can see help clearly. The rest is too degraded. Kate felt a weight settle on her chest. Jessica Hamilton had 2 children who would have been 6 and 9 years old when their mother disappeared. Had Jessica spent her final days in this room, scratching messages into the concrete, hoping someone would find them? I need everything photographed and documented, Kate said. Every mark. Get the lab to enhance them if possible. And I need a complete forensic workup of the room. She pulled out her phone and stepped outside into the cold December air. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink. Somewhere above her, aircraft were taking off and landing, travelers moving through the modern terminal, completely unaware of the horror that had existed beneath their feet for more than 2 decades. Kate had 2 phone calls to make. 2 families who'd spent 23 years hoping for answers, not knowing that their loved ones had been dead since that first terrible Christmas. She dialed the first number, one she'd found in the old case file. Rachel Richardson answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. Hello. Ms. Richardson, my name is Detective Catherine Morrison with Boston Police. I'm calling about your sister, Megan. The silence on the other end was absolute. Then Kate heard a sharp intake of breath, the sound of someone who'd been waiting for this call for 23 years. You found her. It wasn't a question. After more than 2 decades of not knowing, Rachel Richardson had been expecting this moment. Yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry. Kate heard crying on the other end, soft and broken. When Rachel spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Where? At Logan Airport, in a sealed room beneath the old Terminal C. Ms. Richardson, I know this is devastating news, but I need to speak with you about Megan's disappearance. About the night she vanished. Another long silence. Then, through tears, come to my house tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock. I'll tell you everything. The second call was to Emma Hamilton, Jessica's daughter. Emma answered, and Kate could hear children playing in the background. Jessica's grandchildren, who would never get to meet her. Ms. Hamilton, this is Detective Catherine Morrison from Boston Police. I'm calling about your mother, Jessica Hamilton. She heard Emma's breath catch. Mom? You found my mom. Yes. I'm so very sorry, Ms. Hamilton. The sound Emma made was somewhere between a sob and a gasp. That she was crying openly. Where has she been? Emma managed through her tears. Where has she been all this time? At the airport, hidden beneath Terminal C. Ms. Hamilton, I know this is incredibly difficult, but I need to speak with you about your mother. Would you be willing to meet with me? Yes, Emma said immediately. Yes, whatever you need. Please find who did this to her. I will, Kate promised. That's a guarantee. After ending the calls, Kate stood outside the crime scene for a long time, watching the sun rise over Logan Airport. 2 women had vanished from this place on a Christmas Eve 23 years ago. They'd been brought to that hidden room, had suffered, had died in darkness, and been sealed behind a wall like they'd never existed. But now they'd been found. Now their families would have answers, however painful. And now Kate Morrison had a case to solve, a killer to find, and justice to deliver, even if it was 23 years late. Rachel Richardson's home was a small colonial in Newton, its front yard covered in frost that sparkled in the morning sun like broken glass. Kate and her partner, Detective Marcus Reed, walked up the shoveled pathway, noting the Christmas wreath on the door that looked like it had been there for years. Rachel opened the door before they could knock. She was 52 now, but looked older, as if grief had aged her beyond her years. She had the same delicate features as Megan, the same high cheekbones and expressive eyes that Kate had seen in the photographs from the case file. Detective Morrison, Rachel said, stepping aside to let them in. Her voice was hoarse. Please come in. The living room was filled with photographs of Megan. Every surface told the story of a life cut short. Megan as a little girl. Megan in her high school graduation gown. Megan in her flight attendant uniform, smiling at the camera, proud and happy. Thank you for seeing us, Kate said, sitting across from Rachel. Rachel settled into her chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I've been waiting for this conversation for 23 years. I always knew, deep down, that she wasn't coming back. But there was always this tiny part of me that hoped. Can you tell me about that night? Kate asked gently. December 24th, 1997. Rachel took a shaky breath. Megan and I had plans. Our parents had died in a house fire 2 years earlier, so it was just the 2 of us. She'd been put on standby for Christmas Eve, which she hated, but the holiday pay was really good. She promised me she'd be back by midnight at the latest. What time were you expecting her home? Midnight. They usually released people by 11:30 on Christmas Eve. Everyone wanted to get home. Rachel's hands tightened. I waited up. I had our Christmas dinner ready. By 1 in the morning, I still hadn't heard from her. I called her apartment. No answer. I called the airline. What did they say? They said Megan and Jessica Hamilton had signed out around 11:45 p.m. Their supervisor assumed they'd gone home. Rachel's voice hardened. But their cars were both still in the parking garage. Keys gone, purse is gone, but the car's just sitting there. Marcus leaned forward. When did you report them missing? Christmas morning. I went to the police station at 7 a.m. The officer told me I needed to wait 24 hours. He said young women sometimes do impulsive things. He actually laughed when I said Megan would never miss Christmas with me. Kate felt disgust rise in her throat. She'd seen this pattern too many times. But you didn't give up. How could I? Rachel's eyes filled with tears. I called the police every week for the first year. I hired a private investigator in '98. I spent $10,000. He searched for 3 months and found nothing. She stood and walked to a bookshelf, pulling down a thick scrapbook. This is everything I've collected over 23 years. Every article, every poster, every tip that led nowhere. Kate carefully turned the pages, but she saw something that made her stop. A photocopy of a handwritten note. What's this? Kate asked. Rachel's face paled. That came in the mail 2 months after Megan disappeared. February '98. No return address. Kate read the note carefully. The handwriting was neat, controlled, precise. The message was cryptic but chilling, suggesting the writer knew where the victims were. Did you give this to the police? Immediately. They said it was probably a prank. They couldn't get fingerprints, and the handwriting analysis didn't match anyone in their database. Kate photographed the note with her phone. The handwriting was methodical, organized. Not the work of someone mentally unhinged, but someone calculated and careful. Ms. Richardson, Did Megan ever mention any coworkers who made her uncomfortable? Anyone who paid her unwanted attention? Rachel thought for a moment. She mentioned once, maybe a month before she disappeared, that one of the maintenance staff at Logan had been staring at her. She said it made her feel watched, but she didn't think it was serious enough to report. Did she mention his name? No, I'm sorry. It was just one comment. Before they left, Kate needed to ask one more question. Ms. Richardson, I need you to know that the evidence suggests Megan didn't die immediately. She was held for some time before. Rachel closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Did she suffer? Kate could have lied, but families deserve truth. The evidence suggests she didn't die immediately. I'm so sorry. Rachel nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest with me. And thank you for not giving up on her. The visit to Emma Hamilton was equally heartbreaking. Emma lived in Brookline with her husband and 2 young children. When she answered the door, Kate could see Jessica in her features. The same warm brown eyes, the same determined set to her jaw. Emma's younger brother Michael was already there, sitting on the couch. He looked up when Kate and Marcus entered, devastation clear in his eyes. We were 6 and 9, Emma said without preamble, her voice hollow. The last thing she said to me was, I'll be home before Santa comes. I waited by the window all night. When the sun came up and she wasn't there, I thought I'd done something wrong. Kate felt her throat tighten. Emma, I'm so sorry. For years, I thought she'd left us. That being a single mom was too hard. I was angry at her. Emma's voice broke. And all that time, she was at the airport. She'd never left. She was trying to get home to us. Michael spoke, his voice rough. I remember Mom tucking me in on Christmas Eve. She seemed sad. She kissed my forehead and said, take care of your sister if I'm late. Like she knew. For the next hour, Emma and Michael shared memories of Jessica Hamilton, a woman who'd worked double shifts to keep them fed, who'd never missed a school play, who'd made their small apartment feel like a home. Who did this? Michael asked, his voice cold with controlled rage. Do you know? We're investigating, Kate said carefully. We're following every lead. Before Kate left, Emma asked the question she'd been dreading. Detective, did she suffer? Kate met her eyes. Your mother fought. The evidence shows she never stopped trying to get back to you. Emma nodded, fresh tears falling. Mom was a fighter. She wouldn't have gone quietly. As Kate and Marcus drove away, Marcus broke the silence. 23 years. Those kids grew up thinking their mother abandoned them. I know, Kate said quietly. And whoever did this is still out there, still breathing free air. We're going to find them, Marcus said. Yes, Kate agreed. We are. The Boston Police Archives smelled of old paper and decades of accumulated dust. Kate sat at a long metal table surrounded by file boxes containing employment records, incident reports, and security logs from Logan Airport in the late 1990s. They'd been searching for 6 hours when Marcus found something. Security report from November 1997. A female baggage handler reported being followed in the lower levels of Terminal C. She heard footsteps behind her, but when she turned around, no one was there. Kate read the report. The woman's name was Jennifer Mason, and her statement was detailed and frightened. Did they investigate? Marcus shook his head. Security did a sweep, found nothing. They wrote it off as echo effects in the tunnels. Jennifer requested a transfer to day shift a week later. Kate made a note and returned to her stack. Another hour passed, and she found something that made her sit up straighter. An employee complaint file from February 1997, almost 10 months before Megan and Jessica disappeared. A flight attendant named Karen Stevens had filed a formal complaint about being made uncomfortable by an airport employee. The complaint stated the employee had been watching her in ways that made her feel unsafe. Did they follow up? Marcus asked. There's a note from HR. They spoke with the employee, who denied any inappropriate behavior. Without specific incidents, they couldn't take action. They issued a verbal warning and closed the case. Does it say who the employee was? Kate flipped to the next page. The name had been partially redacted, but someone had done a poor job of it. She could still make out most of the letters through the black marker. Looks like W.L. something. Last name starts with W. Marcus pulled up the digital employee database, filtering for maintenance staff who'd worked at Logan in 1997. I've got 73 employees whose last names start with W. Kate went back through the files methodically, looking for patterns. Names that appeared frequently. Someone who had extensive access to the lower levels, who worked night shifts, who would have been familiar with the old customs area. By late afternoon, she compiled a list of 27 names. She cross-referenced this with a partially redacted complaint file. 3 possibilities emerged. Gregory Watson, electrical supervisor, but he'd retired in 1996. Thomas Wallace, plumbing contractor, but his work logs showed day shifts only. Raymond Walsh, maintenance supervisor, hired in 1995, worked primarily night shifts, had unrestricted access to all areas including the lower levels. Kate pulled Walsh's complete personnel file. The photograph showed a man in his early 40s, average height, unremarkable features. The kind of face you'd pass 100 times and never remember. His employment record was mostly clean for the first few years. Then, in the months after Megan and Jessica disappeared, something changed. January 1998, just weeks after the disappearances, a security guard had found Walsh in the lower levels of Terminal C in an area he wasn't authorized to be in. When questioned, Walsh became defensive and claimed he was taking a shortcut. The security guard noted that Walsh appeared to be coming from one of the sealed-off sections near the old customs area. Kate's pulse quickened. "Marcus, I think I found him." Her partner came around the table. "Raymond Walsh, maintenance supervisor. That fits. Look at the timeline," Kate said, laying out the documents. November 97, complained about someone watching female employees. December 97, Megan and Jessica disappear. January 98, Walsh is found in unauthorized areas near where we found the bodies. February 98, anonymous note sent to Rachel Richardson. What happened to Walsh after that? Kate flipped through the rest of his file. He stayed at Logan until 2008. Then he was terminated for inappropriate behavior toward female staff. She found the incident reports, multiple complaints from women, Walsh following them to their cars, Walsh showing up in break rooms when he didn't have work there, Walsh making inappropriate comments. One complaint caught her attention. 2006, from a flight attendant named Laura Brennan. She'd reported that Walsh had followed her through the employee parking garage. When she'd confronted him, he'd claimed he was heading to his own car. But Laura had waited in her vehicle for 10 minutes, and Walsh had remained in the garage the entire time, watching. He escalated, Marcus said. After getting away with Megan and Jessica, he got bolder. Kate pulled up current records for Raymond Walsh. No driver's license renewal after 2015. No tax returns filed after 2014. The paper trail went completely cold. He's either dead or he went underground. Kate called her contact at the Social Security Administration. After 20 minutes of bureaucracy, she got what she needed. Raymond Walsh had been receiving disability payments from 2009 to 2014, sent to an address in Quincy. Then the payments stopped because he'd filed paperwork stating he was returning to work, which was a lie. Walsh had never worked again, at least not legally. We need to find where he went, Kate said. Marcus worked on property records, cross-referencing with Walsh's known associates. It took 3 hours, but he finally found it. In 2013, a small LLC had purchased a house in Quincy. It took a warrant to get the lawyer to reveal the client's name. Raymond Walsh. Kate looked at the property address. A small house on a quiet street, purchased the year before Walsh dropped off the grid. That's where he's been hiding, Kate said. For 7 years. Should we call for backup? Marcus asked. Kate checked her watch. Almost 6 p.m. Let's do surveillance first. Then we call in tactical. They drove to Quincy in silence. The house was exactly what Kate expected. Small, nondescript, with overgrown bushes. The kind of place that blended into the neighborhood so completely that no one would look twice. The windows were dark, curtains drawn. They parked half a block away and watched. An hour passed. Nothing. Then, just after 7 p.m., she saw it. A flicker of light in one of the windows, there and gone. Like someone moving through the house with a flashlight. He's there, Kate said. Call for backup. Full tactical team. The tactical team arrived within 20 minutes, surrounding the house with silent efficiency. Kate and Marcus put on protective vests and joined the team leader, Captain Morris. "What are we dealing with?" Morris asked. "Suspect in a double homicide from 1997, Kate said. "Raymond Walsh, 65 years old, former maintenance worker. Maybe armed, definitely dangerous." "All right, standard approach." Morris signaled to his team. Kate and Marcus waited behind the tactical van, watching as officers took position. Her heart pounded. After 23 years, they were finally going to get justice for Megan and Jessica. Morris's voice boomed through a megaphone. "Raymond Walsh, this is Boston Police. We have a warrant for your arrest. Come out with your hands visible. You have 30 seconds to comply." Silence. 20 seconds. Nothing. 10 seconds. Final warning. Still no response. Morris gave the signal, and the breach team used a battering ram. The door splintered inward. "Police! Search warrant!" Officers poured into the house. Kate listened to rooms being cleared. Living room clear. Kitchen clear. Bedroom clear. Then, from the basement, a shout. "We've got a runner. Back door." Kate was already moving, sprinting around the side of the house. She reached the back fence just in time to see a figure dropping into the alley beyond. Male, thin build, dark clothing. He looked back for just a moment, and Kate saw his face clearly. Raymond Walsh. Older than his employment photo, grayer, thinner, but unmistakably him. He turned and ran, and Kate gave chase. Behind her, she heard Marcus calling for units to cut off the exits, but she didn't slow down. Walsh was fast for a man in his 60s, but Kate had run track in college. She gained on him, her breath coming hard in the cold December air. Walsh turned down another alley, this one narrower, lined with dumpsters. Kate followed, weapon drawn. Walsh turned again, but a patrol car had blocked the far end. He skidded to a stop, trapped. For a moment, he just stood there, breathing hard. Then he reached into his jacket. "Hands where I can see them." Kate shouted, her weapon coming up. "Do it now." Walsh's hand emerged slowly. He wasn't holding a weapon. He was holding a photograph, faded and worn. Even from several feet away, Kate could see who it showed. Two women, young and afraid, in a small concrete room. Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton, still alive. "I kept this one," Walsh said, his voice eerily calm. "Ordinary, unremarkable. Nothing suggesting the monster he was. See how scared they are?" Kate felt rage course through her, but kept her weapon steady. "Raymond Walsh, you're under arrest for the murders of Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton. Put the photograph down and put your hands behind your head." Walsh smiled coldly. "You can't prove anything, detective. It's all circumstantial. We have your fingerprints on evidence from a scene. We have handwriting analysis. We have witness statements. We have that photograph. You're done, Walsh." The smile faded. He looked down at the photograph, and for just a moment, Kate saw resignation flicker across his face. "They deserved it," he said quietly, walking around like they owned the world. "My wife was a flight attendant too. Diane. She left me, said I was controlling, that she needed her freedom. So you decided to punish other women who reminded you of her," Kate said, keeping him talking while Marcus and other officers moved into position. "They needed to learn what it feels like to have everything taken away," Walsh said. His eyes were cold and dead. Jessica kept calling for her children. She never stopped hoping. Kate's finger tightened on her trigger, but she remained controlled. "You kept them in that room for days. They never had a chance." Walsh's expression remained cold, unmoved by her words. "Where's the weapon, Walsh? Are you armed?" He laughed, devoid of humor. "No, detective. You're going to arrest me, and my lawyer's going to poke holes in your case." "No," Kate said. "That's not how this ends. You're going to spend the rest of your life in a cell. And every day, you're going to know that the families you destroyed finally have justice." Walsh's expression hardened. "I won 23 years ago. I had them. They were mine." Marcus had circled behind Walsh. Now he moved in quickly, grabbing Walsh's arms and pulling them behind his back. Walsh didn't resist as the handcuffs clicked into place. "Raymond Walsh," Kate said, her voice steady and official. "You are under arrest for the murders of Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton. You have the right to remain silent." As Marcus led Walsh toward the patrol car, Kate bent down and carefully picked up the photograph Walsh had dropped, using gloves to preserve it as evidence. This photograph would help convict him. His own trophy would be his undoing. She watched the taillights disappear down the street. Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. "We got him," Marcus said. "After 23 years. "Yes," Kate said. "We did." But even as she said it, she knew they weren't done. Walsh had been careful, methodical. She pulled out her phone and called the station. "I need every missing persons case from the Boston area between 1990 and 2008. Focus on women with any connection to Logan Airport. Because monsters like Raymond Walsh don't stop at 2 victims." Over the next week, forensic teams continued their work at Logan Airport. Kate had pulled additional missing persons reports, and the pattern became clear. 3 more women, all with connections to the airport, all disappeared during Walsh's years there. Ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies in sealed sections of the lower tunnels. When excavation teams broke through, they found 3 more victims. Nicole Stevens disappeared 1995. Amanda Foster disappeared 1999. Lisa Monroe disappeared 1993. Walsh had been hunting for at least 6 years, possibly longer. 5 women confirmed dead, their bodies hidden in the tunnels beneath one of America's busiest airports. The trial of Raymond Walsh began in March 2021 and lasted 7 weeks. Kate attended every day, sitting beside Rachel Richardson and Emma Hamilton as the evidence was presented piece by piece. The prosecution built an overwhelming case. They showed photographs of the hidden room. They presented Dr. Hawkins's testimony about the evidence found at the scene. They showed the notebook with Walsh's fingerprints, the photograph he'd been holding when arrested, the anonymous note with his handwriting. Handwriting experts confirmed Walsh had written the taunting note to Rachel. Forensic specialists matched fibers found on the victims to Walsh's work coveralls. Employment records showed he had unrestricted access to every location where bodies were found. The families testified. Rachel Richardson spoke about her 23-year search for her sister, about the note that had tormented her, about Christmas mornings spent wondering if Megan was still alive. Emma Hamilton testified about growing up without her mother, about the anger she'd felt, thinking Jessica had abandoned them, about the guilt she now carried for ever doubting her mother's love. The families of Nicole Stevens, Amanda Foster, and Lisa Monroe testified as well. More decades of grief. More families forever changed by one man's crimes. Walsh's defense team argued the evidence was circumstantial. They brought in a psychiatrist who testified that Walsh suffered from delusional disorder brought on by his divorce. But the jury wasn't buying it. They'd seen the evidence. They'd heard the testimony. They'd looked at Walsh sitting calmly at the defense table, showing no remorse, treating the trial like an inconvenience. The prosecution's closing argument was devastating. The prosecutor stood before the jury and methodically walked through every piece of evidence. Then she held up the photograph Walsh had been carrying when arrested. "This is Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Look at their faces." Raymond Walsh kept this photograph for 23 years. He treasured it. This is who he is. This is what he did. And 5 women are dead because Raymond Walsh thought he had the right to steal their lives. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty of murder in the first degree. 5 counts. Guilty of kidnapping. 5 counts. At sentencing 2 weeks later, the judge gave Walsh the maximum. 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. "Mr. Walsh," the judge said, his voice heavy with disgust, "you have shown no remorse. You have caused immeasurable suffering to 5 families and to this community. You are a danger to society, and you will remain incarcerated for the rest of your natural life." As bailiffs led Walsh away in shackles, he looked directly at Kate, and he smiled. That same cold, empty smile. It sent a chill down her spine because she understood what that smile meant. Even now, even facing life in prison, Raymond Walsh believed he'd won. He'd had his victims. He'd taken their lives. Kate didn't smile back. She just held his gaze until he was led from the courtroom, making sure he saw the determination in her eyes. His victims would be remembered. Their stories would be told. And he would be forgotten except as a cautionary tale. On a cold morning in April 2021, 5 coffins were laid to rest in a memorial plot at Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge. The sky was gray, threatening rain, and a cold wind blew through the ancient trees. Hundreds of people attended. Family members, friends, colleagues, complete strangers moved by the story. News cameras lined the perimeter, respectfully distant. Kate stood near the back, watching as Rachel Richardson placed a single white rose on Megan's coffin. Rachel looked lighter somehow, as if finally having closure had allowed her to release something she'd been carrying for 23 years. Emma and Michael Hamilton stood together at their mother's coffin, their arms around each other, their children beside them. Jessica's grandchildren, who would never meet her but would grow up knowing her story, knowing she'd fought to get back to her family. The families of Nicole Stevens, Amanda Foster, and Lisa Monroe were there too. Their loved ones had been missing even longer, the not knowing stretching across decades. A priest spoke about peace and moving forward. Kate barely heard the words. She was thinking about how many crimes could be prevented if people trusted their instincts. If people spoke up when something felt wrong. If the systems we rely on actually work the way they're supposed to. After the ceremony, Rachel approached Kate. "Thank you," Rachel said simply, "for not giving up on Megan. I'm sorry it took 23 years. 23 years is too long, but it's better than never. At least now I can say goodbye properly." Emma Hamilton joined them, her children holding her hands. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, looked up at Kate with solemn eyes. "Are you the detective who found our grandma?" Kate crouched down to the child's level. "Yes, I am. Thank you for bringing her home." Kate felt tears sting her eyes for the first time since this case began. "You're welcome, sweetheart." As the families dispersed, Kate stood alone among the graves. The rain had started to fall, light at first, then heavier, but she didn't move. She thought about Megan Richardson and Jessica Hamilton, about Nicole Stevens and Amanda Foster and Lisa Monroe. 5 women who'd simply been living their lives, working their jobs, going about their days. 5 women who'd crossed paths with Raymond Walsh and paid for it with their lives. Their families had justice now. Walsh would die in prison. But was it enough? Could any justice ever be enough for what had been taken? Kate didn't have an answer. She just knew that she'd keep doing this work, keep investigating, keep searching for truth in the darkness. Because there would always be more cases, more victims, more families searching for answers. And sometimes, even if it took 23 years, those answers could finally be found. 6 months later, Kate sat in her office reviewing files. It was late October 2021, and autumn had painted Boston in shades of red and gold. Life had moved on, as it always does. Walsh was in prison. The victims had been laid to rest. The families had closure. By all measures, the case was solved. But Kate couldn't shake one thought. How many people had worked at Logan in the 90s and had seen Walsh acting strangely? How many had heard rumors, noticed patterns, felt uncomfortable, but convinced themselves it was nothing? She'd spent months pulling missing persons reports from surrounding areas, looking for any cases that might fit Walsh's pattern. She'd found 3 possibles, but nothing conclusive. It was possible Walsh had killed others and hidden them elsewhere. It was possible he'd been active before Lisa Monroe. It was possible there were bodies they'd never find, families that would never get closure. That uncertainty would always gnaw at her. But for now, she had other cases, other victims, other families searching for answers. She opened the next file on her desk and began to read. The work continued. The search for truth continued. And Kate Morrison would be there, fighting for justice, one case at a time. Because someone has to bear witness. Someone has to remember. Someone has to make sure that victims aren't forgotten, that their lives meant something, that their deaths weren't in vain. And that someone was her. Thanks for watching until the end. It really means a lot. If this story caught your attention, don't forget to like, share, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what stood out to you most. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Seek Stories and hit the bell so you never miss the next mystery. See you soon.